The morning light had barely touched the curtains when the phone rang for the third time. Elena didn't flinch. She didn't sigh. She simply closed her eyes for 1/2 second, the way a person does when they are borrowing patience from somewhere deep inside themselves that is running dangerously low, and then she picked up the receiver and said, in a voice that gave nothing away, "I'll have it ready." She hadn't even waited to hear what was being asked. She already knew. After 6 years, she always knew. Richard Harmon's voice came through the line, clipped and efficient, the voice of a man who had never once in his life stared at a ceiling at 2 in the morning wondering how he was going to make everything work. The quarterly reports. Elena. I need them by 9. Not 9:15. 9. Of course, she said. She set the phone down on the counter, and for just a moment she stood completely still in the middle of her small kitchen, surrounded by the quiet evidence of a life held together by sheer will. The laundry basket she'd been meaning to sort since Tuesday, the permission slip still unsigned on the refrigerator door, the single mug of coffee she'd poured for herself 40 minutes ago and hadn't yet had time to drink. Cold now. It was always cold by the time she got to it. She picked it up and drank it anyway. That was when she turned and found Lily standing in the doorway. Lily was 7 years old. Small for her age, with her father's dark eyes and her mother's stubborn chin and an expression on her face that no 7-year-old should have had to learn. It was the expression of a child who has watched someone she loves disappear, not all at once, not dramatically, not in a way anyone would notice, but slowly, gradually, in the quiet way that exhaustion takes a person apart. Lily stood there holding her stuffed rabbit by one ear, and she looked at her mother the way old souls look at things they cannot fix, and Elena felt the familiar press of something enormous and wordless against the inside of her chest. "You're going in again," Lily said. It wasn't a question. It hadn't been a question in a long time. "I have to, sweetheart. You were there until midnight yesterday." "I know. And the night before you didn't come home until I was already asleep. I waited on the couch but I couldn't." She stopped, pressed her lips together, looked down at the rabbit. "I fell asleep waiting." Elena crossed the kitchen in 3 steps and knelt on the cold linoleum floor so that she was eye level with her daughter, and she took Lily's face in both hands and looked at her the way mothers look at their children when they are trying to memorize them, when they are terrified that they are missing something they will not be able to get back. "I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry." Lily nodded. She didn't cry. That was the thing that undid Elena most completely. Lily never cried about it anymore. She had learned, in the slow and heartbreaking way that children learn things they should never have to, that crying changed nothing. So she had stopped. She had replaced tears with a quiet and practical acceptance that was somehow so much worse, and Elena had watched it happen and had been powerless to stop it because she was always either at the office or recovering from the office or preparing to go back to the office, and the days kept moving and Lily kept growing and the space between them kept filling up with all the things there wasn't time to say. Lily went to the table and poured her own cereal. Her small hand struggled with the heavy milk carton and she tilted it carefully, her tongue between her teeth, concentrating hard. She had learned to do that too, pour her own cereal, pack her own backpack, set her own alarm on the little pink clock beside her bed. She was 7 years old and she had learned to need less, and Elena stood by the counter and watched her and thought that this, right here, was the cost that no one ever tallied. Not in any report. Not on any spreadsheet. This, a small girl learning to need less, was what 6 years of late nights and missed moments actually looked like. Marcus had left 3 years ago. He had called it incompatibility. She had called it nothing, because there was no one to call it anything to. After he left, she had done what she always did. She had straightened her spine, adjusted the numbers in her budget, and kept moving. There was no alternative. There was Lily, and there was the rent, and there was the job, and those 3 things formed the entire architecture of her life, and she moved through them every day without complaint because complaint was another luxury she could not afford. She got dressed in the dark. She made Lily's lunch, peanut butter and honey, the crusts cut off, a little note folded into the corner of the bag the way she always did, even on the mornings when she was so tired that the handwriting came out wrong. The note said what it always said. "I love you to the moon." Even on days she couldn't be there, she wanted Lily to open that bag and remember that someone in the world loved her completely. She walked Lily to the corner where Mrs. Patterson from 4B would be waiting to take her to school, and when Lily hugged her goodbye she held on for exactly 1 second longer than usual. Just 1 second. But Elena felt it travel through her like a current. She stood at the corner and watched her daughter walk away, the little backpack bouncing with each step, and she breathed slowly through her nose until the burning behind her eyes passed. The office was 12 blocks away. She walked it every morning. The city moved around her the way it always did, indifferent and enormous, full of people carrying weight that no one else could see. Richard Harmon's office was in the northeast corner of the 14th floor, a room that had been designed to communicate, in every particular detail, the importance of the man inside it. He was on the phone when Elena arrived. He pointed at the chair without looking at her, the way you point at furniture, and she sat, and she waited, and she arranged her face into the neutral and professional expression she had spent 6 years perfecting. When he finally set the phone down, he opened her folder and flipped through it with the focused impatience of a man who is scanning for failures rather than recognizing achievements. Formatting inconsistency on page 7, he said. And the margin notes in section 3 need expanding. I'll take care of it. He looked up. Not quite at her. Near her. I need you to stay again tonight. Whitfield presentation is Thursday. We are behind. She looked at her hands. She thought about Lily's birthday in February, the one she had spent on a conference call while her daughter ate microwave macaroni and watched cartoons alone on the couch because Elena had promised herself she would be home by 7 and it had not happened. She thought about Sophie's party in March, the one with the pony, the one Lily had described afterward with the devastating neutrality of a child who has already forgiven you and is trying to make sure you know it. Mr. Harmon. Her voice came out steadier than she expected. I'll stay tonight. I'll stay Thursday. I only want to ask, is there any possibility that Friday? Friday is the Whitfield follow-up. If I came in early Monday and prepared everything in advance. Elena. He said her name with the finality of a closed door. Everyone here has personal obligations. I can't build the schedule around them. You understand that. She said that she did. She went back to her desk and she opened page 7 and she fixed the inconsistency and she did not let herself feel anything until she reached the bathroom at 11:15 and stood at the sink with the water running and breathed, slowly, slowly, until the feeling passed and she could go back out and keep going. What she could not have known was that across the city, in a classroom smelling of paste and pencil shavings, Lily had been thinking all morning. Through the alphabet song and through circle time and through the part where they counted to 100 by fives, she had been thinking about the way her mother's eyes looked in the mornings and the cold cup of coffee always left on the counter and the note in the lunch bag that said I love you to the moon even when the handwriting came out wrong. She was 7 years old. She didn't have very much power over anything in the world. But she knew her mother's boss's name because she had heard it so many times it had started to feel like a word for something heavy. And she had a plan. At lunch she asked her teacher, Mrs. Okafor, if she could use the office phone. Mrs. Okafor asked her why. Lily explained, quietly and seriously, the way her mother explained things. Mrs. Okafor was silent for a long moment, and then she did something unexpected. She took Lily's small hand in hers and walked her to the office herself and stood in the doorway without saying a word while Lily climbed up into the big chair and picked up the receiver. The school secretary, a woman named Gloria who had raised 4 children and had long ago stopped being surprised by anything, found the number for Harmon Financial in 12 seconds and dialed it before Lily could change her mind. It rang twice. Harmon Financial, how can I direct your call? Lily sat up straight. She held the phone with both hands. She thought of her mother walking 12 blocks in the cold every morning so there would be enough money for the pink clock and the peanut butter and the rabbit with one loose ear. Can I please speak to Mr. Harmon? She said, in a voice that was very small but did not shake. My name is Lily Carter. I'm 7 years old. And I need to ask him something about my mom. The line went quiet for a moment. Not the quiet of an empty office, but the particular quiet of someone on the other end deciding what to do with something they hadn't expected. Gloria, the secretary who had seen everything in 22 years at a front desk, pressed the hold button with a gentleness she usually reserved for fragile things, and looked at Lily over the rim of her reading glasses. He may not take the call, sweetheart, she said carefully. Lily nodded. I know, she said. But can you try? Gloria tried. She punched through to Richard Harmon's extension the way she always did, with the brisk efficiency of someone who had transferred 10,000 calls and expected this to be no different. But when she said, Mr. Harmon, there's a call for you. A little girl named Lily Carter says she's 7 and needs to speak with you about her mother. There was a silence on his end that lasted long enough to be unusual. Put her through, he said finally. Even he didn't know why he said it. The line clicked. Lily gripped the receiver with both hands and pressed it close to her ear and said, Mr. Harmon. Yes. His voice was the voice she had imagined, firm and businesslike, a voice that expected things, a voice that wasn't used to being called by children. Who is this? My name is Lily Carter. My mom is Elena Carter. She works for you. Another silence. Shorter this time. Yes, I know Elena. She's been working really late, Lily said, and she had planned to say it calmly, the way her mother said everything, but something happened to her voice in the middle of the sentence and it came out smaller than she intended, younger, more honest. She comes home after I'm already asleep. And in the mornings she drinks her coffee cold because she doesn't have time to drink it when it's hot. And she stopped, pressed her lips together the way her mother did, steadied herself. I was wondering if you could let her rest. Just one day. Could you please let my mommy rest just one day? In the corner office on the 14th floor, Richard Harmon sat very still. He was not a man who sat still. He was a man of motion and momentum, a man who filled rooms with the energy of his own certainty, who had built a career on the belief that discipline and output were the highest virtues a professional could demonstrate. He had said the word dedication so many times in his life that it had stopped meaning anything to him the way coins stop feeling valuable when you have too many of them. But something about the voice on the phone, its smallness, its careful steadiness, the fact that it had clearly been rehearsed and was falling apart anyway in real time, did something to the air in his chest that he was not prepared for. Lily, he said slowly, and it was the first time in a very long time that he had said anyone's name like it was something worth being careful with. How did you get this number? The secretary at my school helped me, she said. Mrs. Gloria. She was very nice. I see. He leaned back in his chair. Outside his window the city sprawled enormous and indifferent in the afternoon light, and he looked at it the way he always looked at it, like a thing to be managed, a problem to be solved. But for the first time in a long time he was not thinking about the city or the Whitfield presentation or the inconsistency on page 7 of a quarterly report. He was thinking about a woman who drank cold coffee every morning because she didn't have time for it to be warm. Can I ask you something, Lily? Okay. Does your mom know you're calling me? The pause that followed was so honest it was almost funny. No, Lily admitted. She would say I shouldn't bother you. She doesn't like to bother people. No, Richard said quietly. She doesn't. She never asks for anything, Lily continued, and her voice was picking up a kind of momentum now, the momentum of a child who has been holding something in for a long time and has finally found the door. Not ever. She just does everything and she doesn't complain and she smiles at me in the mornings even when I can see that she's really tired. She thinks I can't tell. But I can tell. Moms think kids can't tell things but we can tell everything. Richard Harmon said nothing. She missed my friend Sophie's birthday party, Lily said. There was a pony. I told her it was okay. It was okay. But, her voice fractured, just slightly, just at the edge. She looked so sad when I told her it was okay. And I didn't want her to be sad, so I told her the pony wasn't even that good. But it was actually a really good pony, Mr. Harmon. Something shifted in the room. Something invisible and structural, like a wall that has been holding weight for years finally developing a crack that runs all the way through. Richard Harmon put his elbow on his desk and pressed 2 fingers against his forehead and breathed through something he couldn't name. He was a man who prided himself on never being caught off guard. He was caught off guard. What's your favorite thing to do with your mom? He asked. He didn't know why he asked it. The words came out before the professional part of his brain could stop them. Lily didn't hesitate. Saturdays, she said. When she doesn't have to work. We make pancakes and she lets me put in the blueberries and sometimes we watch a movie on the couch under the big blanket and she falls asleep in the middle and I don't wake her up because she paused. She looks like herself when she sleeps. She doesn't look tired. She just looks like my mom. The crack became something larger. Richard Harmon was 54 years old. He had 2 sons, both grown, both living in cities far enough away that their visits required planning. He tried to remember the last time either of them had called him just to talk and found that the memory required more searching than it should have. He tried to remember the last time he had made pancakes on a Saturday and came up empty. He had given his life to the building of something and he had assumed, without ever examining the assumption, that the people around him had made the same trade and were equally at peace with it. The little voice on the phone was making it very difficult to maintain that assumption. Lily, he said carefully, I want you to know that your mom is one of the best people who works for me. She's exceptional. I know, Lily said simply, as if this were the least surprising thing she had ever heard. "She's my mom." "I should have." He stopped. Started again. "I haven't always made it easy for her to." Another stop. He was a man who spoke in complete sentences, always, and he was finding it difficult to complete a single one. "I'm going to talk to her today," he said finally. "I want you to know that." "Okay." Her voice was very small. "Can you tell her to come home for dinner? She hasn't had dinner with me in a really long time. I save her a plate, but it gets cold." A beat. Like her coffee. He closed his eyes. When Elena appeared in the doorway of his office at 4:30 that afternoon, she had her notebook and her reading glasses and the look of a woman prepared to be asked for more than she had. She always came prepared for that. It was the only thing she prepared for anymore. "Sit down, Elena," he said. She Saturday. She arranged her face into the neutral professional expression she had spent years perfecting and waited for the new thing that would be required of her. "I got a phone call today," he said. She looked at him. "From?" "From someone who informed me that you drink your coffee cold every morning." He paused. "And that the pony at Sophie's party was, actually, a very good pony." Elena went very still. The color shifted in her face through 3 different things in the space of 2 seconds. "Lily called you," she whispered. "She did." "I'm so sorry, she shouldn't have." "Elena." He held up one hand. "Please don't apologize. Not for this. Not for her." He looked at her directly, perhaps for the first time in 6 years. Not at her work, not at her output, not at what she could produce, but at her. The dark circles she covered carefully every morning. The way her shoulders had been carrying something invisible for so long, they had forgotten any other position. The quiet steadiness of a woman who had been asking nothing from the world for so long that the world had taken her at her word. "Take Friday," he said. "Take Friday and the weekend. Take as much of next week as you need." Elena opened her mouth and closed it again. "And go home now," he added. "It's 4:30. Go home and have dinner with your daughter. The Whitfield presentation will survive without you for one evening." He paused, and something moved across his face that might, in another man, have been called humility. "I should have said that a long time ago. I want you to know I understand that." She didn't trust herself to speak for a moment. She looked down at her hands, the hands that had typed 1,000 late-night reports, that had made 1,000 peanut butter sandwiches, that had folded 1,000 small notes that said "I love you" to the moon, and she breathed slowly and carefully until she could look up again without the burning becoming something she couldn't control. "Thank you," she said finally. Just those 2 words. But the way she said them carried the weight of 6 years inside them. She walked home in the early evening light, 12 blocks, the same 12 blocks she always walked, but something was different about them now. The city didn't feel quite so indifferent. Her feet didn't feel quite so heavy. And when she turned the corner onto her street and saw the light on in the kitchen window, warm and yellow and small against the darkening sky, and the little silhouette moving around inside it, she didn't measure the distance in steps. She ran. Lily heard the door. She turned from the counter where she had been carefully and very seriously attempting to pour 2 glasses of juice, and when she saw her mother standing in the doorway at 5:15 on a Thursday evening, coat still on, eyes bright with something that was almost but not quite tears, she understood without being told that her plan had worked. She crossed the kitchen in 4 steps and wrapped both arms around her mother's waist and held on, and Elena knelt down on the cold linoleum floor and held her daughter with the particular completeness of someone who has been reminded of what they almost let slip away, and for a long time neither of them said anything at all. They didn't need to. The juice sat on the counter. The kitchen was warm. And outside, the city kept moving the way it always did, enormous and indifferent and completely unaware that in one small apartment on one ordinary street, a 7-year-old girl with a stuffed rabbit and a plan had just quietly rearranged the world.